My name is Kala, Arvind Kala. There is one thing more precious than money, that is good company. After almost a lifetime on this planet, I find that most people I meet are pretty tedious, they're boring. And one reason they're boring is because they're all mostly eye specialists. When I say eye specialist, I don't mean this eye specialist, I mean the letter GHI. That's the thing, and they don't know one fundamental thing about conversation. If you're talking to somebody, he's not interested in you unless you're interested in him. The bore is self-occupied. He has no clue that what he's saying doesn't interest the other person after a while, that is. And can a bore be? And I've seen another thing. The chaps I've known, as when I was a young man, they were young bores then. Now they are old bores. That is all. Can a bore become less boring? I don't think so. I don't think so, and because I haven't found boring people improving, and I on the other hand, I don't find interesting people becoming boring. It's something inborn. And then another thing is, the people talk very slowly. Sometimes, when you're in company, etc., etc., you got to talk very quickly. Machine gun fast conversations should be, as it happens in the West, at least among elite circles. Your conversation has to be machine gun fast, because the person listening to you, his mind is racing at a far faster pace than what you are saying. And if you want to tell a story, end it in 5 7 sentences. If you can't end it in 5 7 sentences, don't tell that story. You'll be more interesting if you don't tell that story. That's one thing I find. And another thing is delivery. Some people have very boring voices, like it's a drone. It's a drone, like me saying, say, if I'm copying this, I'm sitting in Goa, I came here on there's a lot of seashore, and then there's, and I have the misfortune of knowing somebody who talks in a drone, and this drone can be so boring that there is an American called Drew Ackerman who actually talks in a drone and puts people to sleep. The 3 million Americans listening to that guy's drone every month, 3 million people. And he draws a salary of 125,000 from the podcast company where he works. And all he does is he just talks in a drone. Some people do that also. There's no inflection in their voices, going up, going down, no gestures. It's just, I was going there, and then this happened, and then this happened. They know when to start a story, they don't know when to end it. You got to end your, whatever you're saying, you got to end it plenty fast, man. Otherwise, people get bored and they sort of drift off, and their eyes dart from here and there. Yeah, how to escape from this guy. And finally, they'll say, the guy who's bored by the bore he's with. He'll make some lame excuse. Yeah, I'm just going to get some chutney and all that. Some shitty excuse, and then he'll kind of drift off, and the bore will keep waiting to for him to come back so that he can complete his exciting story. And that is the thing with bores. You see, a bore doesn't know he is a bore. If he knew he was a bore, if he was boring, he wouldn't be, because it comes from self-awareness. So that is one sign. And you got to be, when I said you got to be interested in the other person, you got to not just listen, you got to listen actively. A chap is telling you something, you're listening to every word. You're not looking here, no, you're not looking there. You're interested in what he says. It's only when you're interested in the other fellow is interested in you. Most people don't realize this. I mean, I find that people are so boring. I mean, particularly women. 40 years ago, they were talking about their children and their children. Now they're talking about their grandchildren. They bloody bore the shit out of me, yeah. So that is the big problem. Another thing is they're also boasting, yeah. boasting on and on and on. That's very, or talking about their wealth. I have the misfortune of knowing somebody, who's very humble and all that, who's always talking about his money in a very humble fashion. And it really gets too boring. It becomes impossible. So just it's just terrible. And what are the other things that these boards do? There doesn't. They another thing. Their stories are too long. They know when to start a story. They don't know when to end it, and. That is the thing. And the essence of good conversation is, I think it was an Oscar Wilde saying, conversation should be frivolous. Work should be serious, conversation should be frivolous. It should be playful. Here, women find men very boring because they're always talking about turnovers and things like that, turnovers and this and that. You got to make your conversation interesting enough to interest everybody. So it's very frustrating, wherever you go. There's hardly anybody to meet because most people are very boring. And so, I mean, that is really how it is. In fact, there was a pessimistic German philosopher called Arthur Schopenhauer, who ultimately decided, who all his life, he was the ultimate pessimist. He decided that his own company was the best. After a lot of reflection, he was a philosopher. And so this is what I wanted to say, and the other traits which I've forgotten about. But this is something I could follow up on how people can be less boring. Um, and don't talk about yourself unless people should be interested in you. Say something which is, let the other guy want to know about you rather than you telling them about everything about yourself. I remember meeting a typical bore in a park, in a neighborhood park, who he had first time I was meeting him, and then he was telling me how his NRI son had been transferred from New York to Dallas or something. Why the hell would I be interested, yeah? In his son being transferred. So it's just boring people are. Oh, I think being boring is a crime worse than murder. Murder. And that guy makes such a good. That Drew Ackerman. I really envy him. Yeah. He just talks in a drone and he gets a salary of $125,000 a month. I mean, he'll just say something, there's a fly sitting on the wall, and the fly just flew off. And then the fly had gone there. I had come through the door, and the door opened, and the knob on the door was this. That's how he's putting people to sleep. Unfortunately, one comes across people, yeah, who'll put a galloping tiger to sleep, yeah. That's my goddamn misfortune, yeah. Well, friends, I think I may have said enough. I don't think I've said enough. I've said too little, but I think I'll follow up with this conversation after some reflection. It's a very, very serious topic, why people are boring. Okay, so friends, forward it to everybody. Subscribe to my goddamn channel, yeah, and I'll bid you farewell. See you later, alligator.